The engine kept humming on Cezanne Avenue while Marquise Cerda sat still in the driver's seat, windows halfway down, sweat rolling slowly across his face in that thick Baton Rouge summer heat. Nobody on the block understood why Big Marky was parked right there until the glass exploded and bullets punched through the door and windshield from close range. Neighbors heard the shots, saw the car roll crooked, then watched a man slump forward without knowing his name or his story yet. What nobody said out loud was how this moment reached back through a nightclub punch, a diss rapper named Nussie, and a rumor about money tied to Boosie. Some of what follows lives inside court records, while other parts survive only through whispers, interviews, and arguments still running today. Before anybody talked about punches or contracts or revenge, South Baton Rouge already lived inside a tight knot where music, hustling, and neighborhood politics stayed tangled every single day. By the early 2000s, Trill Entertainment had turned local voices into national sounds, while corners and studios shared the same faces and the same unspoken rules. Torrance Hatch, known everywhere as Lil Boosie, came up fast through that system after joining concentration camp and releasing Youngest of Dark Camp in the late 90s. His records carry stories about poverty, shootings, and survival, and listeners believed him since many of those lines came straight from blocks he still visited. By 2006, Boosie had built badass entertainment under Trill, pulling rappers, producers, and street figures into the same orbit where business and loyalty mixed without clean boundaries. His circle included artists trying to break through and friends who stayed connected to hustling, firearms, and old grudges that never really disappeared. In Baton Rouge, diss tracks did more than chase attention, since calling somebody a snitch or a coward could invite problems faster than police paperwork ever could. Lyrics traveled through neighborhoods like news bulletins, while rumors moved quicker than indictments, shaping reputations long before any judge heard testimony. That climate mattered when Chris Jackson, known on records as Nussie, started releasing music from his studio near America Street. Nussie was not famous outside Louisiana, but inside South Baton Rouge, he carried weight through Club 225, his neighborhood connections, and a past that included prison time and street disputes. By the mid-2000s, Nussie aimed his records straight at Boosie, accusing him of cooperating with law enforcement and calling him fake in tracks that circulated through mixtape shops and car stereos. Fans picked sides quickly, while people close to both camps noticed how lyrics began turning into personal insults that nobody could easily ignore. At the same time, Marquise Cerda moved through that same environment without holding a microphone or chasing radio play. People call him Big Marky or Big Marky, sometimes Mr. Two-Piece, and everybody agreed he knew how to fight and protect himself when things got heated. He stayed close to rappers, promoters, and street figures, drifting in and out of clubs and studios where music and money kept overlapping. Although Marky never signed a deal or dropped albums, his name still traveled through the same conversations that mentioned Boosie and Nussie. In Baton Rouge back then, police reports often arrived long after the neighborhoods already formed their own conclusions. Bloggers, YouTube storytellers, and local interviews filled the gaps with theories, names, and accusations that never reached court but shaped public memory anyway. By the time the first shot rang out in this story, reputations were already built on stories nobody had proven, and grudges were already growing without anybody writing them down. That was the setting where one argument inside a nightclub could turn into legend before sunrise, and where whispers could carry more power than sworn testimony ever would. Marquise Cerda earned the name Mr. Two-Piece long before anybody connected him to famous rappers or unfinished murders, since people said he could end a fight with 2 clean punches and walk away calm. Friends described him as confident, quick with jokes, and protective around his people, while others remembered a man who never backed down once pride got involved. By 2006 or 2007, Marky spent time inside the same Baton Rouge clubs where trill artists celebrated deals and where street figures handled quiet business near VIP sections. Those rooms stayed loud with music and liquor, yet everybody inside still watched faces carefully since grudges had a habit of showing up uninvited. According to street accounts that surfaced years later, one of those nights brought Marky face to face with Boosie inside a crowded nightclub somewhere near downtown Baton Rouge. Nobody ever pinned down the exact date or venue, but nearly every version agreed that alcohol, disrespect, and old tension pushed the moment toward violence. Witnesses claimed words were exchanged between camps. Somebody brushed past somebody else, and pride turned a small slight into a challenge nobody wanted to ignore. Then came the part that built the legend, when Marky allegedly swung and landed a fast combination that dropped Boosie and sent teeth across the floor. From that point, the story split into arguments that were never settled. Some people swore Boosie lost several front teeth that night and needed dental work afterward, while others insisted he never went down and never bled. Boosie himself denied being knocked out during later interviews, saying the rumor came from enemies chasing attention and clout. No police report mentioned a fight, no hospital records surfaced, and no video ever appeared showing punches or broken teeth. Still, the tale traveled fast through barbershops, studios, and message boards, picking up details with every retelling. YouTube storytellers repeated the punch story years later, naming Marky as the man who embarrassed a rising rap star in front of the whole city. Bloggers claimed the incident created bad blood that never healed, even though nobody could confirm whether Boosie ever confronted Marky afterward. Friends close to Boosie said the rapper lost teeth in a basketball accident years earlier, while critics laughed and called that explanation weak. The more Boosie denied the incident, the harder some listeners believed it must have happened, since denial sounded like guilt inside street logic. What mattered more than truth was how the rumor reshaped reputations almost overnight. Marky suddenly became the man who stood up to a celebrity and walked away alive, while Boosie became the rapper who supposedly got embarrassed and stayed quiet. Inside Baton Rouge, that kind of story carried weight, since disrespect often demanded an answer, whether the insult was real or imagined. People started connecting the punch rumor to Nussie's diss tracks, even though nobody proved Nussie had anything to do with that club fight at all. By early 2008, Nussie released records like Nussie and Speak on Nussie that accused Boosie of snitching, which pushed attention from clubs into microphones and car speakers across the city. Fans replayed lines that called Boosie fake, while Boosie answered indirectly on his own records, letting listeners guess who each bar was meant for. The punch rumor slid into those conversations naturally, turning into proof for people who already wanted to believe Boosie had been exposed. Through all of this, no detective ever named Marky a suspect in anything connected to Boosie or Nussie. Court documents from later murder trials never mentioned his name, and Marlo Mike never accused him during recorded confessions. Yet on the street, Marky's name stayed attached to the story, floating between jokes, warnings, and theories about what might come next. By the time 2009 arrived, people inside South Baton Rouge already believed something bad was building, even though nobody could explain exactly how or when it would break. The punch story had done its work, not by proving anything, but by planting a seed that connected three men who had never faced each other inside a courtroom. From that point forward, every diss track, every rumor, and every shooting would get filtered through that single moment in a nightclub that nobody ever officially confirmed. And once that seed took root, the city started waiting for consequences, even while pretending nothing was wrong. Chris Linnell Jackson, known across South Baton Rouge as Nussie, lived a life split between rebuilding himself and never fully escaping the shadow of earlier street charges. By the mid-2000s, he co-owned Club 225, recorded music from a small studio near America Street, and told friends he wanted to clean money through property instead of hustling. Court records showed he once caught time as an accessory to attempted murder, yet by 2008, he focused on renovating houses and raising children while chasing respect through records. People around him said music became his way of explaining old rumors, clearing his name, and warning enemies without pulling triggers himself. Inside that environment, microphones turned into weapons long before anybody reached for firearms. Nussie started aiming lines directly at Boosie in diss tracks that spread through Baton Rouge cars and corner stores, accusing him of cooperating with police and hiding behind fame. In Baton Rouge, calling somebody a snitch was not entertainment, since that label carried real danger from hustlers, inmates, and anybody trying to earn credibility. Songs like Nussie and Speak on Nussie repeated the claim, daring Boosie to answer, while listeners argued whether the accusation held any truth. Boosie never directly named Nussie on records, but his verses hinted at betrayal and fake friends, letting the audience finish the sentence themselves. The more the record circulated, the more the city treated the feud like an open case without detectives. Fans quickly stitched the punch rumor into those lyrics, even though nobody proved Nussie had been present during that nightclub fight at all. Bloggers claimed Nussie celebrated Marky, knocking out Boosie's teeth, while others insisted the rapper only repeated stories he heard from mutual friends. No witness placed Nussie inside the club, no recording captured his voice praising the incident, and no police file linked him to that moment. Still, once a narrative formed, proof stopped mattering, since repetition turned rumor into memory across the same neighborhoods that already believed violence followed disrespect. By early 2009, people whispered that this beef would not stay inside studios much longer. Friends later said Nussie felt pressure building around him, yet he refused to leave the neighborhood or cancel studio sessions that kept his name buzzing. Dana Winbush, his closest friend, told reporters Nussie spent those weeks buying property and planning renovations, talking more about family than about records or feuds. At the same time, diss tracks kept circulating, and comments online predicted somebody would eventually get touched, even though nobody named a shooter or a target. In Baton Rouge, predictions like that often became self-fulfilling, since fear traveled faster than planning. By February 2009, tension sat heavy around America Street, even though nobody expected the story to turn deadly that quickly. On February 9, 2009, police first responded to a separate shooting victim somewhere near America Street before discovering another body inside a nearby house. Officers entered and found Chris Jackson lying dead from multiple gunshot wounds, with no suspect waiting and no weapon left behind. Neighbors heard shots but saw no faces, while dispatch logs showed confusion about how many victims existed and where the original call even came from. Within minutes, word spread through the block that Nussie had been killed, and family members rushed toward the scene without knowing who to blame. By the time detectives finished securing the house, grief had already gathered outside in loud clusters. News crews arrived and filmed relatives crying on the sidewalk, while friends taped rest in peace messages across car windows parked near the crime scene. Dana Winbush told WAFB that Nussie had been turning his life around, buying properties, recording music, and planning a better future for his children. Police admitted they had no suspects and no clear motive, only acknowledging that the area suffered heavy drug traffic and frequent gun violence. Official statements said nothing about rap beef, contracts, or famous names, focusing instead on routine homicide procedures. Inside the neighborhood, nobody waited for press conferences before assigning blame. Within hours, social media pages, blogs, and street conversations pointed fingers toward Boosie, even though detectives never mentioned him during early briefings. Some claimed Nussie got killed for calling Boosie a snitch, while others said the punch rumor made the situation personal beyond repair. No witness described seeing a known associate near the house, no camera footage surfaced, and no arrest followed in the following days. Still, the rumor machine treated the case as solved long before evidence appeared. Police continued canvassing the area, knocking on doors and collecting shell casings, yet silence dominated most interviews since nobody wanted retaliation for speaking. Reports confirmed only that Nussie was 33 years old, found dead inside a residence on America Street, and pronounced deceased after officers arrived. The department asked for tips and offered no public suspect description, which only fueled speculation across the city. Online commenters debated motives, shooters, and payments, building theories from diss lyrics and old grudges instead of witness statements. By the next morning, the story belonged more to the streets than to investigators. The speed of that shift changed everything that followed, since every later arrest, confession, and trial would be filtered through what people believed happened that night. In Baton Rouge, silence after a killing often meant somebody powerful stood behind it, even when no proof supported that idea. Nussie's death became the hinge that turned rumors into criminal cases, linking names that had never appeared together inside court files before. From that point forward, every shooting around that circle carried his shadow, even when motives stayed unclear and suspects stayed unnamed. And without answers, the city started waiting for the next body, already convinced this story was far from finished. Michael Louding was only 17 years old when police finally learned his name, yet by then the city already whispered about a skinny teenager calling himself Marlo Mike, like the character from The Wire. Friends said he studied gangster movies, copied rap lyrics, and tattooed threats across his body, chasing respect through stories he wanted people to fear. Detectives later described him as young, reckless, and desperate to sound important when officers finally brought him into an interview room in 2010. What changed everything came through videotaped statements that would later be replayed inside courtrooms, news clips, and arguments that still split Baton Rouge today. During those recorded interviews, Louding told investigators he killed Nussie because somebody close to Boosie told him to handle it for money and reputation. Prosecutors later repeated his words carefully, explaining that Louding claimed Boosie spoke through an intermediary named Michael Ghost Judson instead of giving orders directly. According to that confession, Ghost told him Boosie wanted Nussie stamped for disrespect tied to past arguments and diss tracks. Louding said the deal promised $15,000 with $2,000 going to him and the rest staying with Ghost for arranging the job. Officers wrote down every detail, knowing these statements could tie a famous rapper to murder without fingerprints or witnesses. Inside the same recordings, Louding described meeting Ghost, receiving instructions, and later hearing praise after the killing, repeating a line prosecutors would quote for years in hearings and motions. He claimed Boosie told him, "Ghost told me y'all hit that boy. I like that." Words that carried heavy weight even without proof they were ever spoken. At that moment, police believed they had a bridge connecting a rap star, a middleman, and a teenage shooter through nothing more than taped confessions and street language. They kept Louding talking, letting him describe weapons, routes, and payments, while cameras captured every nod and pause. What complicated the story came later, when Louding began changing parts of that confession after lawyers entered the room and charges stacked higher. He admitted killing Nussie, but started questioning whether Boosie ever ordered anything directly, suggesting Ghost may have exaggerated or lied. Defense attorneys later argued Louding said whatever detectives wanted, hoping for protection or deals after realizing he faced life sentences anyway. Court transcripts confirmed which statements were sworn testimony and which claims appeared only in police summaries or later interviews. Still, the damage was done, since one confession had already created a theory powerful enough to reshape the whole investigation. Prosecutors built a strategy around that single narrative, placing Ghost at the center as messenger, collector, and organizer between a rapper and a shooter. They introduced photographs showing Louding with a tattoo reading "Yo Boosie, who's next?" using it to suggest obsession instead of coincidence. Investigators also planted informants near Louding in holding cells, hoping he would repeat admissions without cameras watching him this time. Each new recording added pieces, yet none provided money transfers, phone recordings, or witnesses proving Boosie ever ordered Nussie's death. By the time charges moved forward, Baton Rouge already believed a contract existed, even while courts still debated whether the story rested on truth or imagination. After Nussie died, violence kept circling the same names, starting with the killing that prosecutors later said nearly sent Boosie to prison forever. On October 21st, 2009, Terry Boyd sat inside a house on Vermilion Drive when 6 bullets came through a window and ended his life without warning. Court records later showed an inmate named Lee Lucas wrote Boosie a letter claiming Boyd planned to rob and hurt him after his release from prison. According to Louding, Boosie discussed that letter with Ghost and another man named Adrian Pittman before somebody decided Boyd had to disappear. Prosecutors said Louding fired the shots while Pittman drove and Ghost helped plan the ambush, turning a warning letter into a murder charge. That case went to trial in 2012, with the state accusing Boosie of offering money for Boyd's killing and using rap lyrics as proof of intent. Jurors heard taped confessions, saw phone records, and listened to witnesses describe meetings inside studios and cars. Defense attorneys argued Louding acted on his own with Ghost and Pittman, insisting no evidence showed Boosie gave orders or payments. After days of testimony, the jury returned a not guilty verdict, freeing Boosie from the charge that carried mandatory life. Still, that trial cemented Louding's reputation as a serial shooter whose words could pull powerful men into courtrooms. While Boyd's case unfolded, the middleman in every rumor suddenly became a victim himself. On January 1st, 2010, Michael Ghost Judson was shot multiple times on Charles Street and died inside a vehicle before medics could help. Police announced it as the first murder of the year in Baton Rouge, releasing no suspects or motive. Street Talk said Ghost got silenced for knowing too much about Nussie, Boyd, and Boosie, though investigators never confirmed any connection. From that point forward, the man Louding accused as a messenger could no longer deny or explain anything. Only 3 months later, another death shook the same circle when Daryl Bleak Milton, Boosie's closest friend and badass associate, got ambushed inside a black Cadillac. On April 1st, 2010, shooters killed Bleak and Charles Matthews while they sat parked, leaving Boosie mourning publicly and privately through records and interviews. Louding later faced charges for that murder as well, which complicated every theory since Bleak had been loyal to Boosie and never part of any beef. Prosecutors never accused Boosie of Bleak's killing, and defense lawyers used that fact to argue Louding moved independently, striking friends and enemies without orders. By then, fear replaced loyalty inside the same circle that once mixed music with business and street trust. Rappers stopped visiting certain neighborhoods, associates changed phones, and interviews became guarded whenever Nussie's name came up again. Some killings came straight from indictments, while others lived only inside rumors repeated without proof. And as each body dropped, the city watched the story grow darker, waiting to see whether courts or the streets would deliver the final answers first. After Nussie died, Marquise Cerda stayed visible around South Baton Rouge, even while whispers followed him through clubs, barbershops, and parking lots where stories traveled faster than police files. Some people said Marky arranged the hit as payback for the punch, while others said he only repeated rumors and never touched planning or money. No court document ever placed his name inside the Nussie investigation. Yet street logic decided silence meant guilt, since nobody believed a man could stand that close to chaos without knowing something. By summer 2009, friends noticed he changed routines, watched mirrors longer, and stopped lingering outside spots that once felt safe. On July 24th, 2009, Marky sat inside a car parked along Cezanne Avenue, engine running, windows cracked, phone resting near his hand while the afternoon heat pressed through the windshield. Neighbors later told police they heard rapid shots, then saw the vehicle jerk forward before stopping crookedly against the curb. Officers arrived and found Cerda dead inside the driver's seat, struck multiple times with no weapon recovered and no suspect waiting nearby. Within hours, Baton Rouge started building explanations without evidence, linking the killing to Nussie, Boosie, or unpaid street debts nobody could document. Detectives eventually arrested Damian Williams more than a year later, charging him with second-degree murder and illegal use of a dangerous weapon. Police said the shooting came from retaliation tied to an earlier, separate incident, though they never publicly explained which incident they meant or who ordered anything. 3 theories survived side by side, with one claiming Boosie wanted revenge for humiliation, another saying Nussie's people struck back for betrayal, and a third blaming random street payback unrelated to either feud. None of those stories entered court, since prosecutors never introduced motive evidence connecting Marky's death to rap beef, contracts, or famous names. Marky's killing closed one chapter without answering any questions, leaving every version alive and none proven beyond a reasonable doubt. From that point forward, uncertainty became part of the record, since nobody could say which enemy finally reached him or whether the real reason disappeared with the shooter. In Baton Rouge, unanswered killings rarely stayed quiet, and this one carried weight long after headlines faded. By 2012, the story moved from corners into courtrooms, where prosecutors tried to turn confessions and lyrics into proof strong enough to convict a rap star. During the Terry Boyd murder trial, the state played Loudon's taped statements, showed phone records, and argued that Boosie offered money for a killing through Ghost and Pittman. Defense lawyers attacked Loudon's credibility, reminding jurors he changed stories, faced life sentences, and had reasons to blame powerful names. After days of testimony, the jury found Boosie not guilty of first-degree murder, closing the case that threatened to erase his career forever. That verdict freed him from life in prison, yet it also ended the only courtroom chance to test whether Nussie's killing was connected to Boyd's murder in any legal way. Loudon remained locked inside Angola, later receiving life without parole for the Boyd killing and other charges, while appeals failed and confessions stayed frozen on tape. Meanwhile, Nussie's case never reached trial, since prosecutors never filed charges against any suspect tied directly to his death. On paper, the system finished its work, clearing Boosie, burying Loudon, and shelving the rest as unresolved files. Outside the courthouse, the streets kept arguing, rewriting motives and timelines without juries or judges slowing them down. Legal outcomes closed some doors permanently, while leaving most questions untouched, especially the ones people cared about most. In Baton Rouge, verdicts ended cases, but they never ended stories. After courts moved on, the narrative shifted fully into folklore, where YouTube channels, blogs, and interviews kept reshaping the same scenes with new details each year. The Punch story grew bigger, the hit rumor gained payments, and Marky's death turned symbolic, even when facts stayed thin and witnesses stayed silent. Commenters argued about teeth, contracts, and betrayals without ever opening transcripts or police files. Over time, repetition replaced evidence, turning speculation into memory for listeners who never lived through those nights. In that environment, reputations became verdicts long before any judge spoke, since being called a snitch or a traitor carried weight heavier than fingerprints or ballistics. Fame magnified everything, making Boosie's name the center of every theory, whether he belonged there or not. Marky became the fearless fighter who paid for disrespect, while Nussie became the martyr who died for speaking too loudly, even when neither role matched court records. Gossip worked like a weapon, shaping fear, loyalty, and revenge without needing bullets or subpoenas. Inside Baton Rouge, the tale warned that embarrassment demanded blood, that words invited funerals, and that silence meant guilt. None of those rules came from law books, yet they governed streets more tightly than statutes ever could. And as each version spread, truth drifted further away, buried under storytelling nobody could fully control. Boosie eventually left prison in March 2014 after serving time on drug charges, walking free into a career rebuilt through albums, interviews, and sold-out shows. He spoke about Bleak, mourned lost friends, fought cancer, and returned to music while carefully avoiding deep answers about Nussie or Ghost. Louding stayed behind bars, aging inside cells where appeals ended and confessions followed him without escape. Marky never received public explanations, and Nussie's family never heard a verdict speak his name. Years later, Baton Rouge kept moving. New rappers replaced old beefs, and fresh corners carried fresh rumors with familiar patterns. The opening image of Marky inside that car now reads differently, since every theory still floats around it without landing anywhere solid. No version delivered clean justice, no confession solved everything, and no verdict explained every death. What remained was a trail of bodies, arguments, and unanswered questions, reminding the city that some stories never close. They only fade into quieter conversations.